The MMO genre holds a very special place for many individuals. Whether it be the pure thrill and adventure, the idea of completing difficult or complex boss encounters, player versus player combat, or just this general social environment they provide, MMOs have a unique position in the gaming market. My MMO experience started back in the early 2000s, where I was dragged on to experience World of Warcraft in its vanilla era. But if you also include browser-based MMOs, you'd also have to throw good old RuneScape in there as well. But these experiences weren't the first, as there were other such games as the now legendary EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot, and others that pioneered the genre and hold a near-mythical status with their players. However, since this age of MMORPGs, the direction of the genre has changed with more modern releases. Their previous Sandbox experience of content has now been replaced with the idea of a theme park experience, wherein the game tells you where to go, what to do, and what you should expect and experience from the content it provides. Despite this, there has been a resurgence in Sandbox MMOs in the past few years, and with titles such as Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and Ashes of Creation on the horizon, one could argue that the idea of a Sandbox MMO is making a return. Which brings us to the subject of today's video. Embers Adrift, an independent MMORPG produced by Stormhaven Studios, although some of you may have heard the game originally known as Saga of Lucimia. So, what are they intending to provide with this MMORPG experience? Well, the team working on Embers Adrift highlight their core tenets in that regard, such as a low fantasy environment, group gameplay, and a focus on an immersive experience. With those core tenets in mind, the world of New Haven and the Wild North seems to focus on bringing back the older school feel of MMORPGs that many might not feel is there in today's market. But don't take it from me. The team stresses that Embers is an experience designed with the feel of classic role-playing games in mind, and that they want to provide a unique experience in today's market. In my own experience of the game so far, it is far different to any other MMORPG that I've played at length, and the tenets of the game that are presented by the team, I believe, are key to this element. So far, the community has been extremely inviting and social, to the point where I can honestly say that I've had the most active discussions in-game in an MMO for some time. But we really can't understand a game without understanding the fundamentals of what it's based off of. And there's no more fundamental element than character creation, and in this case, Embers Adrift gives you a variety of options for your height, body type, and other cosmetic options for you to mess around with. Also of note is the fact the system also incorporates body shapes and height, ensuring that all players get some measurement of what they want to play, and adding extra variety when there are no other races to choose from. And then we are set off and dropped into the world at large. Slowly trundling our way over to one of the NPCs, we find one of the first draws of the game, and that is the return to a text-based presentation for quests and chained text discussions when speaking with NPCs. NPCs will sometimes have long dialogue options for quests wherein information will be given, and part of this means that you should be paying attention for these locations, NPCs, or general hints about what you need to do and where you need to go. This factors in neatly into that you are travelling to these quest locations, areas, and wherever you want to go, simply on the two legs that you're standing on, with a limited option for fast travel opportunities at later levels. Combined with the lack of a minimap and an initially blank locationless map, players are challenged to build up their locational knowledge of these areas and find unique locations, such as Ember Rings, which will allow them to base navigation from their previous experiences. We can also clearly see that there is a difference between the out-of-combat and in-combat movements, but this is more than just an aesthetic choice. So, whilst we're near it, let's jump into the matter of combat. Combat in Embers Adrift is a fairly slow experience. Whilst auto-attacking will make up your consistent damage, all roles will be able to use skills that consume their stamina and provide a variety of different effects, from simply increasing the weapon damage done to a target, to buffing and debuffing the target, or healing allies. Combat is also directional based to the target which you are fighting, indicated by the small arrow that is as seen here and next to the creature. With this directional combat in mind, the roles in Embers Adrift gain a benefit from where they are facing and where they are standing to a creature, therefore increasing their combat effectiveness. But what are these roles? The three roles in Embers Adrift are that of the Defender, the Striker, and the Supporter, which form the holy trinity of the tank, DPS, and healer. These roles then divert into their specializations, as shown on screen now. Whilst the initial roles are basic to begin with, these specializations are truly where the uniqueness of these roles begin, due in part to the fact that the different specializations are focused towards different ideals or roles that could be wanted or found in a group. For instance, if you want to be a straight-up tank with a good ability to maintain aggro, why not try the Knight? In hindsight as well, you could also try out the Duelist as a supporter for a more DPS-oriented experience. With each of their unique abilities at play, these roles and specializations are all able to maintain a unique identity which allows them to be included in any group which they enter into. This is a great sort of element in my experience, as the idea of excluding classes based on a global meta was one of my concerns with a game like this. So, now that we have our roles and abilities to deal with the pesky wildlife, what else can we do to prepare ourselves? Well, to ensure that you're ready to go, players have up to 3 trade skills to choose from, which are unlocked as you progress them, and the first one being free after a short tutorial. Much in any other MMO, players are given the choice between gathering and production skills, but given that this is a primarily player-driven economy, a good proportion of your upgrades will either need to be made by yourself or requested and bought off other people. And whilst you're not limited to changing these trade skills at a later date, any leveling process is lost when you swap, meaning that you would need to second guess yourself before changing, so make sure you don't choose too lightly. And all this doesn't start to touch on the areas such as further questing, group and party content, and the open-zoned dungeons that one can get into, but these elements are better experienced than explained. So, we've seen a glimpse into the MMO today, but what would be my takeaway from it as I sit around the Ember Ring? With all the quirks and charms, Embers Adrift has certainly captured a unique draw and feel that I've not experienced in an MMO to date. To this end, I've compiled a list of my pros and cons from my time in the game so far, which consist of what I feel the game does well and what could be seen as a potential drawback. And with that, there's no better place to start than with the positives. Whilst it might be obvious, my first positive is that this game is a sandbox experience, which is certainly refreshing in this current market. You aren't forced into a routine or forced to follow a chain of quests, as you are able to just factor and play the game at your leisure. As a result, there isn't an impetus to log in and forcibly do your dailies, and there's no obligation to do so. It is truly a game where you decide what you want to do and when. My second positive is that combat is slow and tactical in Embers Adrift. Positioning does matter, and spamming your abilities is a surefire way to run out of stamina and potentially end up in a bad situation. Group content exemplifies this, with different roles and specializations adding to combat in their own unique ways, and allowing for a variety of different compilations to make each grouping experience unique. My third point is regarding the immersive environment and landscape and just general feel of Embers Adrift. The World of Northreach is certainly an immersive experience where the areas have their own unique feel, the various environments, and the change in the atmosphere when the night falls upon the world. Traversing around the world by your own effort, identifying locations, and getting to discuss and observe directions from NPCs who live in the world draws you in a way that I've not experienced for a while. And whilst this is more of a personal note, my final positive for today's video is that there are no microtransactions in this game, and Embers Adrift is a game sold as is. Naturally, there are plenty of other little nuances that I could or would have added as positives, but my intention for this element was to just advise you what drew me into the game most, and what you could also find interesting. But with the good, we also must discuss the bad, or in this case, what I could feel is a potential drawback in this game. And my first con in this element is that inexperienced MMORPG players, or those who have only ever played theme park MMOs, may feel a little bit overwhelmed. Whilst there are tutorials in place, less experienced players may feel overwhelmed with the idea of a sandbox MMO, and those who find that they want a curated experience may find the lack of an inherent storyline or content that leads them from one thing to another against their tastes. Secondly, slower travel and large distances, whilst it may be nostalgic for some, may cause some frustration or the elements of getting to content areas daunting for some players. This also ties into grouping opportunities as well, as gathering together for content may take some time depending on where everyone is located. And my final con that I would like to bring today is that whilst soloing is viable, it will be more difficult. The community is lovely in this case, but for those who prefer a solo MMORPG experience may find the game challenging, as quests and content are designed towards those who want the grouping experience. Whilst all the above are my opinions, and there could be many more elements that I could have raised today, I feel that Embers Adrift is certainly an experience for someone to take firsthand and form their own opinions on. For me, the game was an interesting look into how potential sandbox MMOs of the future might look like. The idea of stepping back to the old and seeing what could be brought into the new without losing the original identity that it strives for. Embers Adrift doesn't sell itself as the next WoW, nor does it intend to be. Far from it, the game at its principles is to return back to the days of smaller groups, forging their own memories in the wild yonder and building friendships and contacts within the wider game. And this is certainly something that has been missing for a while. To this end, I'd happily recommend trying out Embers Adrift, with friends or even as a solo player. Just be sure to chat and find some folks to help you out with the content. But that is it for today's video. Do you play Embers Adrift? Are you interested in playing the game? Let me know what your opinion of the game is down below in the comments. And if you've enjoyed the video today, please feel free to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more MMORPG related content. You could even check out one of my other videos that I have, as the support is most appreciated. But until next time, take care.